Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're doing amazing. Welcome to Counseling Talk. Juan here, your host, and I am here with Brianna. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm going to pick her brain all about how to talk to your child during the divorce and separation process. Thank you for being here, Brianna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and Brianna, for all of you watching this, we go way back. We have a little bit of a history, but at the point of this episode, I really want to have her on here because I think with the U.S., we have like a ridiculous divorce rate. And a lot of kids are going through it. A lot of adults are going through it. And I think you are a person that people can reach out to when it comes to how do we have these, what I would assume, really tough conversations with a child who is like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about you.
So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. So that's why I can speak to how do we navigate these types of conversations within family systems. I have a strong background in a systems approach. When we think about, what everything we do doesn't just impact us, it impacts everyone around us. So I always practice from everybody in the room, whether they're physically there or not.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else can I say? I own a practice out in Reidsville, North Carolina. The whole
Awesome.
goal of my practice out there is to bridge gaps in the community that we really need, and working with rural communities is something that really inspires me. And I just want to be able to be there for everybody because everybody deserves access to services. So
Absolutely. And I love that. I love how you explained your approach. I think sometimes when people go into their first counseling session, they know that we're helpers, we're healers, we're going to work with you in your journey and moving forward. But then each of us may have a different style approach.
yeah,
And you use the system, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
from numerous system-based models of how we can best communicate and figure things out to get the clients to a better space that they want to be at.
Okay. So let's kind of bridge that into, a client coming in. If it's, let's say it's a child, adolescent, or a teenager, and they're going through that divorce or separation process, what are typical signs that you see where if a parent is about to go through that proceeding and they're about to separate or divorce, how would a parent know that I should take my son, my daughter, my child to see a therapist?
Well, I think there's numerous approaches and numerous things that you can see occur in your child. In smaller children, you're typically going to see like belly aches. They don't have the capacity yet and the emotional understanding and intelligence yet to say, this doesn't make me feel good,
Hmm.
or I'm feeling anxious, sad, angry. They don't have that. So you're typically going to see mental health signs manifest in belly aches. And you could have not changed their diet, and or you could go through all of these things with the primary care doctor and obviously rule out if there's anything physically going on. But in most cases, you will see belly aches as a way to say they emotionally don't feel good.
Okay.
In teenagers, you're typically going to see the retaliation or silence and isolation. But in all of the cases, it comes down to they don't understand, what does mom and dad's separation look like for them? What does their life now look like? And that's where a lot of the core emotions are coming from, and in some cases fear of, what does this look like?
Fear of that unknown. And yeah, that
Yeah,
makes perfect sense. So whenever they're younger, you're getting like more physiological symptoms. So parents can kind of keep an eye out for, here's a stomach ache, but all last year, my child did not have stomach aches like that. So this is
yeah.
something I got to dig into. And then when they get older, there's, I guess, a stronger level of verbal expression I can share about how I feel, or more rebellious, oppositional, defiant like behaviors.
Absolutely. And I work with a lot of teenagers, and I would say in many cases, the defiance of what parents bring them in for me to see me, the defiance is so heavily seated in fear of, again, what does my life look like now?
Yeah. I've seen that. So with it, are you, and I'm going to dig into, I'm sorry, I forgot to here, where I've had cases just like that. I'm working with this awesome, amazing family, and then there's a child, and he or she, let's say the child is just being oppositional, like, they're really pushing against authority at school, getting in trouble, and you're looking around, and I'm trying to figure out like exactly why. And then there's like a thought in here that goes into, what was it like prior to separation, before having to go from one house to the other? In a way, you're living in a backpack, you're going to one home and you got rules that are ABC, at the other house you got rules that are AWF. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that has to impact the child in a manner.
Absolutely. And I think you also, in some cases, you have to kind of continue to go backwards of what was the environment like for the child before the separation? Were they exposed to constant fighting? Was there any possible domestic violence that the child was
Mm,
exposed to or the teenager was exposed to? And then also how you communicate the separation to the child, and that continued communication of, if you're at mom's, making sure mom's not bad mouthing dad or dad's not bad mouthing mom. So that way trying to find the cohesiveness of this co-parenting versus turmoil. You don't want to create those rifts.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be about communication too, of how did you present the separation to the child.
Yeah, and that turmoil, those rifts, I think I see those where sometimes kids are messengers in a way, tell your dad this or tell your mom that, kind of puts them in this real sticky situation that they don't want to be in, but often they don't have that in level of independence to say, no, I don't want to do this.
Absolutely. And that's one of the worst things you can do to your child, is have them become your messenger because you don't feel like texting dad, or you don't feel like picking up the phone and calling mom. Like putting your child in the middle of your separation is absolutely one of the worst things that creates such angst in the child. Um, and then also, I would say a lot of things of what I see is, if a separation occurs because of an affair, the child doesn't need to know that.
Hmm.
And communicating that, if it's a smaller child, that how you can have a crush on a person at school, but then there's other people that you're just friends with.
Yeah.
Communicating that daddy and I, or mommy and I, have decided that we no longer have a crush on each other. And then obviously continue that age appropriate conversation as they're older, but the child doesn't need to know the inner affairs that went on, because
Hmm.
they don't need to have that picture painted of mom cheated on dad or dad cheated on mom. No child needs to have that tainted view of their parent.
Yeah, I love that. So you're really breaking it down where the parent is able to communicate to an extent, and very much child developmental, like stage related, right? A 5-year-old conversation versus a 15-year-old conversation. What do you typically, Brianna, whenever you're working with kids, and let's just use adolescents, what are like coping skills or ways that you support them as far as navigating this journey that they're in?
Yeah, so a lot of times we start with, especially when working with adolescents, like, what are things that you like to do? So if you weren't here, because let's assume you're stuck here, if
Yeah.
you weren't here, what would you be doing? And I always try to come from the approach of understanding that in a lot of cases, the kids are here, the adolescents are here because mom's making them, or dad's
Hmm.
making them, or maybe even grandma's making them. So I try to I'm very lighthearted. So I like to play and be silly. And like, if you come into my office, there's a bunch of little gadgets and things to play with. But so I talk to them about, like, if you weren't here, what would you rather be doing? So we talk about, like, well, I'd rather be skateboarding or drawing. And I pull on those resources that they'll tell me what they'd rather be doing, video games, whatever it is, and then see how can we fold that into a coping skill. So instead of handing a client, like, here's a list of 100 coping skills I found,
Yeah.
pick out your favorites. you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I like to pull from what did they already do,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
what you do is such a coping skill, as long as it's healthy, is such a coping skill, and it's about redirection. So understanding that these hard events don't feel good, so you have that deep yuck feeling, but then when we do something fun, it's teaching our brain that we can surface and still have fun. So
Yeah,
it's about that back and forth. So that way we can know and start to rely on these coping skills that we already do.
absolutely. And I'm assuming, as you're sharing that, I'm kind of thinking to myself, if I'm a parent and I'm in that situation, that's what I want to be utilizing. I want to be focusing on what does my child like? What are their interests? Skateboarding, Xbox, Call of Duty, whatever
Yeah.
it may be, and utilize it. And then you said
Yeah.
it perfectly with that worksheet. Sometimes I'll give a client a worksheet and then it's like, yeah, these are awesome, but they look kind of boring too. Can we kind of do something that I want to do?
Yeah. Exactly. And now I do have the occasional client that's a bit more like, I'm not doing it, I'm not talking to you. And I'll pull out the coping skills worksheet and be like, so number one is read a book. Do you like to read? No,
Hmm.
I hate reading. Okay, well, number two is, and then usually I'll get to like 10 and they'll be like, are you going to read this whole list? I was like, yeah, there's 100 of them. And I'll be like, all right, fine, I'll tell you what I like to do.
I like that. That's very
Yes.
great.
Finding creative ways to talk to these children, because they have to understand that this is a safe, different space than what they're used to at home.
Yeah. And you use that word safety. I like that. So whenever you're working with your clients, you give them a safe space. Is that something that you also encourage the parents to do to be
Mhm.
able to, I guess, develop or cultivate a safe space for them?
What I like to do is, like I tell all of my parents of children, if I'm just seeing their children or their adolescents, we have those rules that we have to abide by as licensed clinicians. But my approach is we're going to tell mom or dad together. And
Hmm.
I try not to have private conversations with mom or dad about the child without the child knowing, because I think that that cultivates that sense of fear of like, oh, what's Brie talking about to
Yeah.
mom? So like at the end of some sessions I'll say, hey, I think we should bring mom in, if mom's in the waiting room, like I think we should bring mom in and tell her this idea that we came up with for a coping skill. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we could do that. So then we bring mom in and we communicate. So when Billy is really feeling down, what he's
Hmm.
going to do, what we came up with is he's going to tell you, I'm having a really down moment and I would really like to go outside for 10 minutes and skateboard. And can you please allow me that space to do that?
Yeah.
So we communicate through that. And then that way it allows the parent to kind of make sure that, okay, so I have a sense of what's going on with my child, but giving them that space to kind of go out, skateboard, pull their thoughts together. And that's how I try to create that safe space at home, is for the parent to understand, because a lot of cases when we nag as a parent, it's because we don't understand what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And we're just driving the kid nuts doing
Uh-huh.
that. That creates that, okay, Billy's going to go out, skateboard, and then he's going to come back and you guys are going to sit down and talk about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And that creates, and in a lot of cases the parents will come back and say, that really is working, and it's helping us communicate better because he's able to get whatever's going on out, and then we can talk about
Absolutely. I really like that. I mean, I was kind of just taking all that in and really thinking about the child coming into a session, but this child, they're coming in where a lot of the major decisions in their life were not that of their own. Before, maybe they were very happy and content, they were good, it was cool having
it.
mom, having both parents in the house, and then now that decision was made, really distant from them. But then you're involving them in that decision making and saying it's still your life, you're still a part of it. Are you comfortable if mom or parent comes in and then we have that conversation together? Do
Yeah.
you ever notice like an increased level of maybe empowerment, or the child becomes more of a team player or part of the family system because of the work that you're doing?
In a lot of cases, what it does is I kind of view it as they have that buy-in. I mean, if you look in any kind of aspects of any part of our lives, whether it's personal, professional, social, if we have a buy-in, we're more likely to commit to it.
Yeah.
So when we're giving the child a voice to have that buy-in in this decision-making process, it really does empower them to be able to succeed and have that voice. But it also teaches them longer term how to communicate with everyone in the outside world.
Hmm.
And in turn, that, I mean, I've seen some teenagers that started college, and you hear them communicating a buy-in approach that they've learned from therapy to make it successful for them.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I'm kind of just sitting back and thinking how, a child goes through all of that, but then they get to this place that they're able to say, "Hey, mom, this is how I feel. This is what I think about what's taking place." Or, "Hey, dad, this is how I want to be involved. I want to skateboard first, and then we can have the conversation about thoughts and feelings." Or, "Let me go to my therapy session where I can let out certain things in the best way that I can, even if it's mean. And then my therapist, Brianna, is going to help me, move those variables around so it can be nice and neat. And then you and I can have a great conversation."
Yeah, we do heavily work on how we communicate, and making sure that, like, I like to make sure that the client understands that maybe it's not always necessarily what we say, but how we say it. That if
Yes.
we're nasty about it, it's not going to be heard. But if we're kind of calm, cool, and collected about what we're communicating, we're more likely to be heard by the family member. So we work on communication, and sometimes we work on how we say it a little bit of like, I try to get away from the finger pointing, blaming,
Yeah.
and I work with the clients to say, no one can ever deny what you are feeling. So when you do this, I feel like A, B, C, D. No one can take away what you feel. So if you
Mhm.
come from that approach in your communication styles, it is a more successful conversation.
Yeah. Well, listen, Brianna, this has been amazing, sitting here with you and being able to look at how to support, how to help kids, all the way to teens to be able to navigate the trenches, right?
Yeah.
Because it's trenches. I mean, it seems like very difficult work that you're doing. If anyone's watching this and they want to connect with you, they want to be able to receive support, how can they contact you?
So you can you can always call me. My phone number is 336-908-3927. And then you can also find me on Facebook. My company is called Irenic Therapy, Irenic Therapy. And then I've got a website too, so feel free to contact me anyway.
Awesome. And is that website irenictherapy.com?
It is.
Okay, perfect. And I'll have all of those on the notes below so you guys can check that out. Brianna, thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.